Welcome to Live, Love, Play. My name is Ross, and this is For the Love of, a periodic interview blog about everything we geek out about. Joining me today is EA Channon, author of the fantasy novel Flesh of the Blood. Thank you for joining me, EA.
Thank you for having me, Ross. It's good to finally check in with you and try out this new technology and have a wee bit of fun.
This is your first time with TeamSpeak, I understand. Thank you again for making it work with me this way.
No worries, as long as we don't launch any missiles anywhere, I'm good to go.
I don't think we have anything to worry about there. All right, so let's get right into it then. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and your experience up till now?
Well, I make it short, actually. I'm more of a musician than I am a writer because I've been playing the bagpipes for over 40 years, and
Wow.
my family basically were all musicians slash military people slash race car drivers slash politicians. So we all kind of, want to do something that involves, I guess, getting people's attention.
That's a pretty diverse group.
It is actually, yeah, and we have a good time throughout history. We've invented things throughout history, like everybody enjoys the modern facilities of the bathroom. That is something that an ancestor of mine invented, and so I can't say that I'm very proud of that, but at least I can say, hey, thanks to my ancestor, we all have a bathroom.
High claim.
True.
That's more than I can say for any of my immediate ancestors, I think.
Yeah, so when I was playing the bagpipes, I decided to join the military as well, and because of that, I was able to, I guess you can say, be trained a lot more in the British Army, and so I traveled the world with them and did things as a medic plus playing the bagpipes. And let's just say that my first book actually is about my 40 years of playing the bagpipes and how much trouble you can get into playing the bagpipes around the world and wearing a kilt.
And what is that book called?
That one's called Ballad of a Bagpiper. And as I've been told by many people, it reads like a Monty Python episode.
So why don't you? What is Flesh of the Blood?
Okay, so Flesh of the Blood is a story of a world that is about a group of people who are trying to find a missing princess. And when they go out there fighting and discovering themselves, they discover that the princess is not who they thought she was. And so it's, as I say, it's a story of a world, but it's a story within a story. But it's 6 books total, and we are just in the first 2, but the third one comes out next week. But the first one, Flesh of the Blood, then you have Flesh of the Blood, Devastation, and the next one coming out next week is called Flesh of the Blood, A Call to Arms.
Next week is in the first week of September.
Correct, yes, the week after Labor Day, yeah. And so it's 6 books altogether. And, I'm very proud of this because I wrote the whole series at once. Mainly because I was having so much fun writing. I just wanted to see where the characters were going. So I just wrote the whole thing out instead of doing one book at a time.
Wow. Just went all in, huh?
Yeah, I went all in. And luckily I have a wife that was very understanding. She was like, just don't go hide in someplace and come back out with a long beard and like, who are you? I still try to keep a civilized mind about myself when I'm writing, and I have a good time. And I discovered a lot of things about myself when I was writing, and from the fact that my mind can come up with some incredibly great stories, and also the fact that because I suffer from PTSD from the military, writing is something that actually helps me. So
That's good. That's wonderful.
and actually, it's kind of a joke, but it's one of those serious jokes. As I was told by somebody, a doctor, basically said, "Wouldn't you like to write about killing somebody instead of doing it?" And I'm like, "Well, yes, of course." So that's one reason why I write, is because I would rather write about fantasy or horror or sci-fi, and then instead doing it for real life. So it just kind of went from there, and I've had an incredibly good time, and the books have just gotten incredibly great responses on the other end. So I feel accomplished.
That's great. What were some of your inspirations and motivations, additional motivations leading up to the first book's publishing?
Well, my main inspiration actually growing up was Robert Louis Stevenson. For those who might not know, they should know Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, or Kidnapped, and I felt that some of the characters that were in this story have like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde element. Everybody has a good side and a bad side. And so I thought that some of these characters should have that. And so it kind of went from there. But then the other side was, as I grew up loving Frankenstein. And so when we tell people this is kind of like a Lord of the Rings slash Frankenstein styled story, you get both of that. You get the fantasy plus you get the science in there. And so when I wrote this story, I threw both the fantasy of elves, but with the Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde slash Frankenstein in there. And I don't know, it's kind of interesting to talk about, but it's interesting just thinking about the fact that there are so many characters in there that you are reading about and you fall in love with them, and then all of a sudden they turn around and you're like, ugh, don't want to have coffee with that one.
Wow, that sounds very interesting and exciting. What are some of the specific reactions after the release of the first book?
Right off the bat, actually, I had a fan email me a picture, and I think it was a slight jealous picture to be sent to me. The fact that she was sitting on the beach reading the book, and she sent a picture of herself sitting there. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't I love to be there? But her reaction was, this is the best book I've read to be sitting on the beach and just enjoying. And then another fan sent me an email saying that this is a great book, that you don't need charts or computer programs to figure out which character is going where and what is what. I was thinking, well, that's interesting. So, I started getting into wondering what some of these people were talking about, because I started noticing a pathway on some of the people that were coming back to me, even at conventions that I've been to and signings. Some people would come by on Friday, buy the first book, come back on Saturday and buy the second book. And just recently, people would do that Friday, Saturday, and come back on Sunday, or they would do it on Saturday and pre-order the third book, because they felt that this was where fantasy was supposed to be. You just sit down, you enjoy it, you don't have to worry about the world around you, and you just have a good time. And I thought, that's great, because there's so many books out there that I definitely would love to read, but I don't want to be influenced, but I would love to read. But I've been told time and time again that it seems like fantasy has taken this corner that now you have to have a history degree to understand things, or you have to have an understanding on, geography or something like that. And I'm thinking, why can't fantasy just be fun?
On the subject of fantasy, why a fantasy setting? A friend of mine told me recently that everything in fantasy has already been done. So what's different about Flesh of the Blood than a lot of the fantasy that's already out there?
Well, I think the fact that without uh, destroying the storyline, without giving out the secrets and all that,
Without spoiling it.
yeah, without spoiling it, the great thing about Flesh of the Blood and the world of Marn that it's taken place in is it's just one part of a story. That if you understand what evolution means, that might give you a clue a little bit on how this whole story is taking place. It's just one part of a story or one part of a life. And so when people start reading more into the series, they'll understand that Marn is just one part of a world, one part of a thing. And they'll understand that it's, one little piece of the mechanism of the computer of life and stuff like that. Hopefully.
Very cool. You're about to say?
Hopefully that kind of answers that there. But, it's so hard to sit there and go, oh, I just want to tell you everything without spoiling.
So, last year you published Devastation, the sequel novel, and you said you had 6 books in all planned?
Yeah, 6 books altogether, and the third one actually comes out next week, yeah.
Awesome. So, what's kind of release schedule are you looking for the remaining 3 after the one that releases the first week in September?
Well, it actually all depends on the artist and how quick the maps can be drawn inside. Because I draw all the maps inside the books. I learned a long time ago that reading any type of sci-fi fantasy styled book, that if you get lost, if you have problems, then that book becomes harder and harder. So I made it that as you go along in the books, there's more maps. So by the time you get done with the 6 books, inside the books, you're going to have about 20 books altogether, or 20 maps altogether. So I'm, as I call it, medieval GPS, because there's no way you have a computer on Mars. So why don't have a map? So as you go along with the characters and the series story, you'll have a map there to help you along. But the artist and I actually work very hard to make sure that what the cover that you see is actually a scene that actually happens also in the story. So he and I work hard to make sure that it works well with the story. So he takes him about 4 months or so to get a good piece of work out there and done. And then, of course, you got all the publishing and stuff like that. So each book, I think, we've kind of matched to come out about every 8 to 10 months.
Wow, that's pretty reliable, or pretty short for a fantasy series.
Yeah, and I recently, it's funny enough, recently just heard Stephen King say that, he can pump out 2, sometimes 3 horror stories a year. And really, when it comes down to it, if you have it in your head, it shouldn't take that long to actually come up with a good story.
Well, Stephen King isn't human.
That is true. Met him years ago when I was actually on tour for my first book, and he told me that, and I thought that was something like that, and I thought that was quite interesting. But yes, he is a very scary person. So,
I mean, compare that to George R. R. Martin, who takes 2-3 years in between books. Of course, his are almost 1,000 pages long with each one, and getting bigger with each one.
yes, and it's funny enough. I joke about it when I'm actually talking to fans, but you can't believe how relieved people are that when I say that even if an alien comes along and picks me up and takes me home, these books will be coming out, which a lot of people just gasp and like, oh my gosh, thank you. But I say that these books are already written, so that means that you don't have to wait 20 years in between each book. And that makes most people just go, oh my God, thank you. And it wasn't as a pun to certain authors. It was just the fact that because I actually, like I said at the beginning, I sat down and I was enjoying the fact that I was having such a good time writing this story that I just kept writing, not realizing that there are authors out there that do write one book at a time. I just was having so much fun, I just decided to write the whole series.
Very nice.
Not realizing that that's something that a lot of authors don't do. And I was like, but There's series when it does get done. There is other series that I'm also working on, on the other side. So,
That was my next question. What other projects do you have going on, or is there anything else you'd like to promote?
well, yes, I am working on two other genres, I guess you can say. After Flesh of the Blood world is done, then there is a science fiction series that's in production after that. And then in between that, I think between the Flesh of the Blood and science fiction, I might come out with a horror that I had worked on that's actually based on my family's history. So you could say it might be slightly real history, but I think it's, kind of like a fantasy history type genre with horror in there. And then after the science fiction series, I have a fiction that I'm working on as well. So you could say that if you stuck with me, that you'll be seeing books coming out of my mind every 8 to 10 months for the next 10 years.
Well, you've certainly got my attention.
I think it could be the fact that because I have also a dyslexia, ADHD, I have all the acronyms in the world. I think my mom, when she gave birth to me, I had my elliptical cord wrapped around my neck, and I think the doctor was like, that did something to his head. So I've always been one of those people that I work 20 things at a time.
It tends to be a common thing among creative types, I've noticed.
Yeah. I could sit there and watch the telly, work on the computer, and listen to music. It drives my wife up the wall. But things get done.
I'm the same way, and it bugs my girlfriend too.
If we can make money while we're doing that at the same time, why not?
That's the dream.
It's the dream.
So where can people find more information about you, your projects, and especially Flesh of the Blood?
The best way actually is to go onto the website, EA Channon, that's spelled CHANNON, .com. That's the best way. Or they can actually go onto Facebook, EA Channon, and go onto Facebook, become a fan. You can find out more information about seeing me wherever I'm out and about, meeting fans. I like to interact with the fans, so I take pictures with them and I play jokes with them. So we just have a good time. My dogs are constantly on Facebook saying how much they miss me, but we have a good time on Facebook. I'm also on Twitter, and we're working on all the other avenues of information to get out there. But those are probably the two best ways to find out information about things.
All right, well, please send any updates my way, and I'll be sure to update anyone who's interested in listening.
Sounds great. I will do that.
Thank you for watching this interview. If you enjoyed it, please like the video and share it with your friends on social media. If you would like to see more content like and unlike this, please subscribe to my channel and visit my website. Links from the interview and to my site can be found in the description below.
In association with Busy Little Beaver Productions.